Hello, everyone, and welcome to a joint conversation of the Western Spirit and on meaning. And today we're with someone very, very special, the Czech Foreign Minister, Jan Lipavský. Mr. Minister, it's a great honor and privilege to speak with you today.
Thank you very much for having me.
So maybe, Minister, we will start off with the first question of what you're doing here and what exactly are you hoping to achieve on your visit to Israel?
So I'm visiting Israel on my official visit to meet with my counterpart, but also I have another high-level meeting. So I have just begun with the meeting which concluded a few minutes ago with Mr. Speaker of Knesset. And the mission is quite simple: to show friendship, show solidarity, but also to discuss practical agenda of economic cooperation between our scientific institutions, tourism, as the ministers of foreign affairs do.
So, Mr. Minister, I wanted to ask you about one of the things in the agenda of the last, since President Trump has come into office, in Prime Minister Netanyahu's last visit to Washington, the president brought up his plan of moving or giving the Gazans reason to move out of Gaza. Does the Czech Republic, do you have any official position? What do you think about this new plan, and what would you say to the Israeli people about your position on this?
Honestly, I see it more as a press statement or tweet or video rather than a real plan. What we need is to develop a new strategy for Gaza, which would have international recognition in a sense of responsibility of Gaza. And there is no clear path to it. There's no clear way. So I see it as one of the ideas rather than something which could now take place.
But until now, you were quite against the two-state solution, and you don't really offer another solution except the two-state solution. So what do you think will be a good solution for the crisis in the Middle East?
Two-state solution is something which is quite developed in a sense of international law, international humanitarian law. I think those are the principles which we try to stick in at all costs. And this is also my message on different kind of forums and during bilateral meetings. We don't have anything better than two-state solution. So, as well as we don't have a clear way how to achieve it. That's true.
But what has been changed since October 7th? From your perspective on the Middle East?
I think what changed after the 7th of October is rather geopolitical situation. We can see that the Hezbollah was stripped of its former force. We could witness the fall of the Assad regime in Syria, with the new one now being in place, giving us little of hope that things in Syria will normalize to better. We can observe at least partial defeat of Hamas in a sense that they agreed to peace deal, which is very important, and it's sad to see the story of many hostages, and it was shocking for me to see those three people in a very, very pure condition, inhuman conditions, but still alive, handed over. Much more tragic was to see the fate of the Bibas family, which especially today, it's the day of the funeral. So this is what has changed. We have so many plans, but this is the reality, and it seems to me that Israel was able to provide for its security.
Minister, you wrote an op-ed today at the Jerusalem Post, which was, I have to say, very interesting and good. And you highlighted there the fact that the Czech people and the Israeli people have a mutual friendship, a very deep friendship that goes back over 100 years, I think, from Masaryk, the father figure of the Czech people. Maybe you can explain to us why I asked your ambassador to give a very good explanation, but maybe you can also tell us, why do the Czech people and the Israeli people share such a common bond? What is it about it?
There's many ways how to interpret it, but it's something which really goes to the times of Masaryk, to the situation after the Second World War, as well as the current days and Václav Havel. So I'm glad that the Czech society has this friendly relations toward Israel, and it makes us a good partner, strategic partners actually.
Yeah, but like the rest of Europe is quite against the state of Israel in all kind of decisions in the EU. And what makes you special, or what makes you like swim against everyone else?
I would not say that the whole Europe is against. I think there is quite a variety in those stances. Sometimes, and there are states which definitely could be categorized into that, but I don't want to be specific. I never do that in public interviews. But there is quite a group of states, especially in Central Europe and around Czechia, which has similar views, and we can quite effectively cooperate typically in discussions on the EU platform. And you ask what makes us special. I think maybe given the tradition and given the very strong political consensus. For example, the Israeli Friendship Group in the Czech Parliament is the largest one, and we have a quite strong consensus, even with opposition on this topic. It gives us a certain ability to stay firm, even when it's not so easy to do so.
And Minister, one thing that I think is interesting, and I wanted to get your opinion on, is the fact that the stronger allies of Israel in Europe seem to be countries that have gone through communism. And do you think that plays any role in the fact that people remember how communism was and how a lot of the propaganda that they're seeing against Israel is very resemblant of that? Does that make any sense?
I think it may be part of the legacy, but on the other side, it's 30 years. It's 30 years, and many things change since that. So yes, it might be part of that, but definitely, it's. I think the cultural heritage is much stronger than the communist oppression, which was one-sidedly putting ahead, let's say, the Palestinian agenda at that time.
And also. And I'm sorry, Tamir, if I again interrupt you, but after October 7th, I come from New York originally. On October 8th, we've had in the streets people already like protesting, being pro-Hamas even. Israel didn't even retaliate at the time. And it was all over the West. I think one of the only countries that I didn't see any real protests, like there probably was, but it wasn't like on a mass scale, was the they said Czechia. That's important to you.
I think there were demonstrations in Czechia in support of Israel.
Yes.
Maybe not the second day, but many days after it. We had this kind of manifestation.
Is there any, because we hear anti-Semitism, there's a global epidemic about it. Is there anything in Czech Republic that you're doing to combat, or is there no need?
So we have an official strategy, which is under the auspices of Ministry of Interior, to fight anti-Semitism. Of course, there are some cases also in Czechia, but this is being followed quite cautiously, and we are trying to do everything to prevent it.
What is the role of Islam or radical Islam in Czech Republic or Czechia? To your opinion, how does it play a role in the relationship between Israel and Czechia, or the maybe bad relationships between Israel and some of the other EU states?
I'm not aware that we would have a community which would be infected with radical Islam. So Czech communities are quite okay, I would say, in this regard.
Because you don't have a bigger or a large amount of radical Islam communities?
As far as I know, the communities are quite small and moderate in this regard.
Because we heard some statements of Polish officials who say that we don't have the problem of Islam because we didn't let them in, like as immigrants or as refugees. What do you think about it?
We have typically been a target country for people from Ukraine, from Russia, from Balkans. So the situation in Czechia is much different than from the Western European countries. So one thing it's what the state is doing, and the other thing is what is the phenomena as such. But yes, we have very small communities, and they are moderate. So I think it's something which also helps the overall atmosphere in Prague, which I know is a very popular destination for many Israelis and generally Jews to visit the heritage of Old Town and synagogues and mosques, and cemeteries.
Minister, one thing that is very, I think, notable and courageous of the Czech Republic, Czechia, is that in almost all of the UN resolutions condemning Israel or against Israel, the Czech Republic is one of, I think, usually like 9 countries. It's the Czech Republic, Israel, America, and maybe some like local islands somewhere in the middle of nowhere that a lot of times will vote on these resolutions, and the entire world will either vote for it or abstain. And you have taken a very, courageous, because that's what I want to ask you. Are you paying prices for your support of Israel? Is there a price to pay for being supportive of Israel so much?
So maybe it's a good opportunity to explain this a little bit. Czechia stands with international law, international humanitarian law, but it doesn't mean that UN has to be overflown with many resolutions on basically the same thing. So there are even resolutions where we vote in favor, and it's a traditional thing. And but then there is a lot of things where we are trying, let's say, to have a sober approach to the thing. And yes, we are not in a majority currently, but first of all, it may change at some point, and we don't see any practicality in those resolutions. So sometimes we abstain, and sometimes we even vote not in favor of such resolutions.
And also, one other question that I have to ask you is about the warrants that were put out by the court in The Hague for Prime Minister Netanyahu and former Minister Gallant. There are countries, for example, the new future Chancellor of Germany says that he will invite the Prime Minister, and in defiance of the court. What is the Czech Republic's position on this? Would you be willing to invite Prime Minister Netanyahu?
I think one thing is to invite, and then to have the ability to assure a safety, which is quite a complicated legal matter, actually. So it's the question. My answer is not so would not so be not so clear on that. But we should remind ourselves that ICC should work in a situation when there are no real domestic procedures. But this is not the true for State of Israel and judiciary system here. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to interfere into internal matters of Israel, but we know that there are quite a lot of issues internally on the competencies. So I would say this is a proof that there is a division of powers, as in democracies should be. So we put out a political statement that we see those actions of ICC as something inappropriate.
What do you think should be the role of the EU? Something more like the USA, like to build a nation out of the Europeans, or some kind of an agreement of economics and of trade something like it used to be 70 years ago?
We will see, and now is the time when things are changing, because new American administration is quite clear in messaging that Europe must take more responsibility in the field of security, which is unpopular because you have to dedicate money for defense spending. But Czechia, for example, now spends 2% of GDP for defense, and the Prime Minister just on Monday announced that we will gradually increase to 3% of GDP in a few years, as well as many other European countries are looking for ways how to do more effectively and maybe together on some European platform. Maybe not on the EU platform. This is the matter of discussions right now, because everyone feels that we need to contain Russia and stop the war in Ukraine, but not in a way that would only give dictator Putin what he wants to achieve, what he is not able to achieve through military means, by diplomatic means, but really to stop his ability worsen security situation in Europe. It's not only about war in Ukraine, it's not only about war refugees or the energy crisis. There is so many infrastructure cable destroyed in Baltic Sea. There is last year it was almost up to 100 different kind of sabotages and cyber attacks across the Europe, which we can attribute it to Russia. So we really need to do something. It's not about the peace deal as such. It's the complex solution of Russian imperialism, to say so, and also I think there will be some kind of common European way how to approach it. Maybe not on the EU level, maybe in some different format. I don't know. This is what we are playing for now, and the EU definitely will remain a strong economic bloc, the biggest economy in the world, and I think EU is now looking to rediscover its real power.
What I was asking is about where should the power be? Not the power of security, but where should the power be domestically or in the EU, in Brussels?
It depends which kind of power we are discussing. So, for example, the trade policies are discussed commonly and we vote on them. Foreign policy, it's always the agreement of 27 states with full sovereignty. So I think the real question is Brussels versus capital, but how to keep Europe enough fit in a sense of industrialization, energy prices, competitiveness. Those are the real discussions we are having.
Minister, Israel voted with the U.S. against the Ukraine in the UN just now. We've been hearing a lot of criticism of obviously also the American vote, but also of Israel and its voting. And just in general, since the war in Ukraine, there has been a lot of criticism of the fact that Israel hasn't gone full force behind the Ukrainians, hasn't provided them with weapon systems, even defensive weapon systems they've asked for. How critical are you of Israel when you come here and you speak with your counterparts? You just spoke with the Speaker of the Knesset. I think you're going to meet the Prime Minister. When you speak and you want this, are you telling them that you're disappointed in them?
Definitely not. I never criticize for countries which provide help to Ukraine. And Israel is providing help to Ukraine. And maybe I'm speaking about Czech interest and our interest to do more. So this is my approach to matter. And I say that we have a common enemy. The Shahid drones from Israel are flying from Iran. Shahid drones from Iran are flying on Israel as well as on Ukraine. Those are the same drones. And the alliance between Iran and Russia is getting stronger and stronger. And we should see that. So this is my messaging. Let's be looking for a common interest. And the vote in the UN, I think it was It was the U.S. resolution was presented on last notice, and so basically there were in a few days going attempts to have a one draft, to have a one position, which we were not able to achieve. And then it went to votes. So I hope that in the future we will be able to unite behind one position. I think it would, and in this regard we are trying to have as intensive as it possible dialogue with the USA.
What do you think will be the end of the Russia-Ukraine war? We heard in the couple last days of some offers from Trump to Ukraine and to Putin, and the meeting that was last week.
Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, in Saudi Arabia.
So I think we are far than we can imagine, because we have to understand what are the real Russians' objectives of this war. And Russians are saying them quite openly. Limit or strip the sovereignty of Ukraine, which means that Ukraine could not enter NATO. This is the limiting of sovereignty of sovereign state. And if you listen Russians carefully, they do not speak about Ukraine they speak about Ukraine as it is some kind of territory, not a sovereign state. They speak about Zelensky as someone who is controlling Ukraine, but not as a legitimate president of Ukraine. By the way, he's freely elected, which is not the case of Vladimir Putin, who stole many elections. And they even not consider Ukrainians as a nation. They consider them basically as Russians and misguided brothers or something like that. So the objective of Russian war is to destroy the Ukraine statehood as such. And then we can hear things like that they would limit the number of Ukraine soldiers, they would limit the long-range capacities, that they would not allow them certain types of weapons. We should not give this to Russia. If Russia is not able to achieve it militarily, we should not give it to them in a diplomatic way. That would be the biggest mistake. So, and those are the real Russian objectives. Ukrainians are not absolutely ready to accept any of that. So, how to achieve a peace? Maybe we can achieve some kind of ceasefire, but definitely that would be only pause for Russia to get more strength for another attacks, another action. But I would not consider it as a lasting and fair peace. And again, I'm saying that the Russians are doing much more in Europe, including sabotages, information warfare against Europe. This should also be part of the solution, that Russia will stop all those activities and they will stop interfering into European security.
And this will be the good solution that you offer, like just to stop, or what's the difference between stopping and a ceasefire?
I don't want to. We don't want to see another Minsk treaty, Minsk I, Minsk II. That was a treaty which stopped officially fighting. They were shooting at each other every day, basically, and it allowed for Russia to build a big army and attack Ukraine again. So we should achieve such a deal that will make sure that Russia will not again attack any European country. That's Czech interest. That's what we need to strive for.
Minister, maybe you can explain to Israelis what exactly worries countries like you about Russia, besides all the things you just said about them, not accepting Ukrainian sovereignty, besides the sabotaging, all the things you said. We hear, I didn't really understand it until I spoke with people related to the Czech Republic and other Eastern European countries. Could you just explain the fact that, are you really worried that if Ukraine falls, you and other countries like you could be next?
Absolutely.
Can you explain why?
Russians are very open about that. One of the conditions which was presented by Russia's side before the full-scale invasion from Russia to Ukraine was that they want to revert the security architecture in 1997. Czechia entered NATO in 1999. So the propaganda is speaking every day on a TV, on bombarding different kind of European cities. It was 2014 when GRU operatives blow up 2 ammunition stores in Czechia, killing 2 people actually, because the ammunition from those stores supposedly was be sold to Ukraine at that time. They do not respect our sovereignty. It was some kind of telegram agent which was paid to burn some public transportation. It's act of terrorism in Czechia, in Prague, to make panic. So what is the difference between terrorists trying to harm population in Jerusalem, or Tel Aviv, or Prague? For me, this is the same. So the Russia is basically a terrorist state. So this is the reason why we don't want to achieve any kind of temporary peace solution. We want to make sure that Russia will stop doing this to Ukraine and to the rest of Europe. Maybe they are not attacking us directly, but through this kind of state-sponsored terrorism acts and the information warfare, different kind of cyber activities. So I want to stop this. This is our interest.
Can maybe just as a last question, you've been here, I think this is your 2nd time since October 7th, and I assume that after October 7th, when you came, you saw a little bit about, first of all, you met people here, so you saw the grief and I guess what the country was going through on a psychological level, and just on, everyone in Israel mostly knows people who died, lost limbs in the last year or so. And can you just give us from a personal view, from your experience, what did you feel, what did you see when you were here?
So it was 10th of October, 24.
23.
23, sorry, 10th of October 23. And it was 3 days after the attack. It was a snap visit on the way from Oman. And I visited Minister of Defense, where I had a meeting with the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And then I traveled to Jerusalem to be received by President Herzog. And then I brought some stuck Czech citizens back home, because the flight operation at that time was stopped. And I think what I felt was a very tense atmosphere. Even it was a normal day, I think it was a Monday or Tuesday, everything was very calm. There were no public activities going on because everything was cancelled. I think the most moving moment was meeting with the family of one of those abducted people, and then I after a few weeks or months, this person was released. So this had the good. This is a good part of that. One of the elderly ladies. So now I can of course feel that the atmosphere is much more relaxed, even though today is the day when the funeral of the Bibas family is taking place. So this would be my comparison of personal feelings.
So you feel now is more people here are more upbeat and optimistic?
It's not an atmosphere of shock, obviously, after a year and a half.
Minister Jan Lipavsky, I have to say that the friendship, like you wrote in your op-ed today, the friendship between the Czech people and the Israeli people is something I never even thought about it until since October 7th, and reading the UN results and all that, the solidarity, and the beautiful countries both. So I was in Prague, so I really, really appreciate you coming to Israel and obviously also speaking to us, so thank you so much.
Thank you very much. In the very beginning, you asked me what is the purpose of my visit. So I hope that even this interview helped to show exactly what you pointed in your last words on the good friendship between our countries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the good friendship.